Welcome, everybody, to the very first episode of the Scott Fishbowl Mock Draft Tank. I'm your host, Jorge Edwards. With me, I got a very special friend of mine here tonight, a former Fantasy and Frame member, Jeremy Wolf. Had a little technical issue just there. Anyhow, we're back. Scott Fishbowl's back. Woo! We're getting ready to do our first mock draft here at Fantasy and Frames. I got Jeremy Noble with me, former member of the Fantasy and Frames family. You saw him at the Fantasy Football Expo last year get second place in the Cornhole tournament. Jeremy, they just opened registration. Bob Long just announced yesterday, so I hope you are signed up for the Cornhole competition at the Fantasy Football Expo.
Already working out my rotator cuff, getting limber, getting ready to go.
I love it. And we love everybody who is participating in the chat. For many of you who saw, or maybe you didn't see, right before we went live on air, Scott Fish reached out himself, the creator of Scott Fishbowl, and said that Jeremy and I are going to be able to give away in the chat live on air tonight a spot in Scott Fishbowl 14. This is awesome. This is super generous by Scott Fish. So thank you very much, Scott, for donating a spot here to an event that I think really does a fantastic job of rallying the fantasy football community together in a positive way. June is one of those months in the fantasy football world where things kind of get a little subtle. Things kind of die down, and this just comes right in and takes it to a new height and gets us ready for the regular season like nothing else. And so I'm excited. I'm fumbling my words. I can't wait to start drafting. The scoring. Hold on, we got a comment here from Case. Jorge, how did you get your jerseys framed so nicely? It took a long time. It took a long time, and there are a lot of holes behind those frames trying to get that to be very level with each other. Yes, I could have used like a digital leveler to do that, but that's too easy. I needed to do it the hard way and be like, put a nail there, hang it up. Not yet. And then take out the nail, put the nail in another spot. And so needless to say, there's going to be some repairs that have to be done when it's time to move out of this house. But that's for another story. Don't tell my wife, please. Thank you. Anywho, let's get to the draft board. Here we go. For those who are unaware of the Scott Fishbowl scoring, it's very awesome, to be honest with you. Touchdowns, 6 points per, whether it's passing or rushing, 2 points per 2-point conversion. No negative points this year. Okay. 1 point for 50 yards passing, which could give rushing quarterbacks the upside. In fact, they do give rushing quarterbacks the upside versus the quarterbacks that are your Jared Goffs of the world, who are not going to set the world ablaze with their feet. Rushing and receiving, 1 point for 10 yards, half a point for first down, 0.25 points per rush attempt. That's pretty awesome. In terms of receptions, it's going to be a half PPR format. Wide receivers get a full PPR, tight end get tight end premium, 1.5 PPR, plus a tight end bonus of 1 point per first down. Kickers, which we're going to be doing this on the Sleeper platform. And for Sleeper, you're going to have a kicker in your lineup. It is 3.3 points for made extra point, and then 0.1 points per field goal yard. Special teams, players, individuals that you can insert into your lineup in a flex spot, which we'll get into flex spots in a second. 10 points per return touchdown, 1 point for 5 yards per return. Now your starting lineup. Okay, Jeremy's here, really good friend, but he has never participated in the Scott Fishbowl. So I wanted to bring him on tonight to basically give an outsider's perspective of like, holy crap, what is this world of Scott Fishbowl? What am I expecting if I do sign up, if I do have the ability to participate? Jeremy, just get ready for this. You start. This is your starting lineup. A quarterback, one running back, one wide receiver, one tight end, one kicker, one super flex, and then on Sleeper, 5 flex spots. Right?
You can boil your brain with that.
Yeah.
I mean, look, that's one of those where, I would say I'm a fairly good average casual player. Jorge can attest. I've won this or that league that we've been in, more than by happenstance. But it just more flex spots means you just gotta be more attentive, more creative. You can't just rely on, well, I guess I gotta start. Everybody has a bad RB2, so we're all in a wash, right? That just means you gotta be more on top
We got Jeff here in the chat. Devin Hester, yes.
Devin Hester.
If there was ever a year for him to like find the age of youth fountain and to come back to the NFL, this would be the year, especially for fantasy football managers.
Yeah, I'm not sure even the ghost of Devin Hester would have many kick returns in the current rules format, but fair.
Yeah, this is going to be fantastic.
Yep.
For those of you who are participating in the live drafts at the various cities, have fun with that. That is going to be so much fun.
There's nothing better than a live draft. Oh, I can't wait. I'm already stoked. Let's get to August. Come on, baby.
I know, right? And then for those of you who are participating in online drafts, those are pretty awesome too. So it's a great excuse to talk to your boss for a week and say, or for 2 weeks, depending how long your draft goes, and you'd be like, look, I'm going to need some time during the day, especially during our meetings, to be like, pause. Jorge has to make a draft pick right now. I'm sure they're totally going to be understanding of it. Tell them I said it's okay. Notice how notice how I didn't say Scott said to tell them it's okay, because I don't want to get Scott Fish in any trouble. I'll take all the blame for this one. We got Jeremy in the chat saying, Scott Fishbowl, Philly, let's go. Yes, Philadelphia did have a great turnout last year. This is my first turnout for DC. I haven't done the DC one yet, so excited to do that. Man, just a lot of good stuff here. And so for those who are just tuning in right now, just before we went on air, Scott Fish did give us the okay to give away during this show a spot in Scott Fishbowl 14. So we'll be keeping track of everybody who's participating in the chat. Make sure if you're heading over to our YouTube channel to like and subscribe to the channel. We'd really appreciate that. We really appreciate patronage so that you're notified whenever Fantasy and Frames put out awesome fantasy football content. So then, you know what, how about we start drafting? Let's learn.
Let's get it done. Absolutely. I'm ready for my mind to be blown.
Got Colby Conway in the chat. Scott Fishbowl, Charlotte this year. Woo! Man, just so many great stories trying to get in. And let's see here. Go to Denver for the live draft. That's awesome. Got Drew 3MR in the chat here. 3 spots at Nashville. St. Louis was the last season. Like, people who are in the chat, who are participating in the chat, just read some of these stories that you're seeing these people comment. Nothing but great things. Like I said, Scott Fishbowl is one of the best times of the year for fantasy football. So I'm excited. Michael Aldridge, let's go. You boom. You nailed it. Let's start this draft. I'm drafting out the 3 spot, so get ready to roast me all day long. I look forward to it, as this is my very first Scott Fishbowl 14 mock draft here. So, Jeremy, shall we?
Leroy Jenkins.
Leroy Jenkins. Here we go. Starting off the draft now. All right, Gingerbread Man, you're on the board right now. You're on the clock, excuse me.
So, Jorge, I got to say, if you were number 1 overall, Scott Fishbowl settings, do you think there's a clear number 1 this year?
So I read online, and I haven't done the spreadsheet analysis, and I'm sure I'll get to that at some point tomorrow, because who doesn't like doing spreadsheet analysis on a random Sunday? I saw that even with the current settings, Christian McCaffrey would have been the number 1 overall player last year, and then insert tons of tight ends. And so,
I mean, you can do all the things you want with scoring, but I feel like in the end, the person who touches the ball the most and tends to be incredibly efficient and scores touchdowns on a highly efficient offense, it's hard not to believe they're not going to be near the top every year.
Right. And here's the thing, like, a lot of people will say the counter argument of, well, how often is it when you have the number 1 person per ADP be the number 1 the following year? You know what I mean? And again, I guess it's all like scoring setting dependent, right?
Sure. But you're taking everything in, especially in the first few rounds, I feel like in regular redraft or even Scott Fishbowl, what you're doing is trying to not lose the draft in those first few rounds. And sure, you're going to have your David Johnson breaks his arm on, game one, and that hasn't scarred any individual person that plays fantasy football ever and won't forget about that. Or you have, Eckler just fall off a cliff last year. But I feel like in the whole, there's a reason they're drafted up there. There's a chance they might slip to maybe they're a top 5 RB versus a number 1, but that's still mitigating a lot of risk versus trying to shoot for the moon and think who's going to actually be RB1 this year.
So I just want to point out here that we have a auto draft, and we're going to let that go because this guy, who I know very well, who I will not give out his real name, said, I got to set a timer. I'm going to set a timer for tonight. When does this start? I'm like, specifically 17 minutes. Okay, 17 minutes? 17 minutes. And he still overslept. That's your bad. Don't sleep next time. Yada, yada, yada. Okay, so.
All right, Jorge, live inside Jorge's brain here. You've got Scott Fish scoring, super flex, top 2 rushing quarterbacks, which, looking at these scoring settings, seems like a reasonable thing to take towards the top of draft. Are you thinking, are they in their tier alone? Do you go tight end here, knowing the huge upside? And if you do go tight end, I'm thinking, is this Kelsey still? I think there's a lot of people in the industry going, is last year's start of the end? And if so, who are you going to take a risk
on? So to answer your question, I am going to go tight end. I am going to see how this mock plays out for me, going the tight end heavy route or tight end bully or bully tight end route, however you want to call the strategy. And I do think it's Travis Kelce who's going to be the tight end one last year. Remember last year to kick off the year in Detroit, he was dealing with a really bad knee injury. They lost against Detroit. Then magically he's like, okay, well, that was a scare. I'm going to come back now and start playing maybe a little bit sooner than he should have. I'm not a doctor. Who knows? But that being the case, we saw how he was playing down the stretch last year, and especially in the playoffs. And, it was basically Mahomes and Kelsey back together again, much like you and I back together again on a Fantasy and Frames show. So, yeah, I'm all on board the Travis Swift bandwagon right here.
I like it.
Thank you.
By the way, I appreciate you're not calling out Gingerbread Man. Don't look in the chat. Might otherwise be getting called out.
Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. People will take care of that for me. Yep. But he's back in the chat. I can see the little green dot right there. So he is ready to go, folks. Let's see. After we got JT Orange with Christian McCaffrey, followed by Lamar Jackson, Sam Laporta, and then CeeDee Lamb, followed by Patrick Mahomes. Let's see, All-Star and Drew. We were talking in the chat before we got started. Who are you going to pick here? Yeah, man. One thing that is also I forgot to mention earlier when we were going over the rules is that there is a 3rd round reversal in Scott Fish Bowl, which I want to say was last year, the first year they did 3rd round reversal. People in the chat, let me know whether or not I'm right or wrong on that. Specifically, if Scott Fish, you just happen to be in the chat, you want to tell me whether I was right or wrong. That would be pretty awesome. But that has to really make you think, Jeremy. If you knew that you got a 3rd round reversal here, where would you have wanted to have your spot picking in Scott Fish Bowl?
If I look at something like Scott Fish Bowl.
Oh, he said Scott Fish Bowl 10 is when 3rd round reversal came in. Thanks, Scott.
Nice. Thank you, Scott. It's a great question. I still think I'd want to be near the top of the draft for super flex leagues, for tight end premium leagues, for the Scott Fish Bowl conglomeration that it is. I think there's just such a huge delta potentially between what Josh Allen could give you or Kelsey if they're truly hit in such a big competition, because you're not just playing against 10 people in the end, right? Or 12 people or 14 people, that I think that's worth the risk, and that you're getting the back end of the 2nd and the 3rd round, knowing that there's a little bit more of a mix, particularly with the flexibility with the 6 flex spots. I don't know. I'd want to be able to get one of those top tier rushing quarterbacks for tight ends. How about you?
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. Although, talent is talent, production is production, and you may not be able to necessarily play your strategy into the hands of, well, let me take advantage of this bonus here or that bonus there. If you're at the 3-1 and Saquon Barkley just happens to be on the board, or insert high profile star where everybody's been zigging, I think you have to zag to a certain point. You can't always just let the draft dictate to you what you should be doing. You should be proactive in the draft and trying to get ahead of the curve sometimes. And so there's a delicate balance, and I think that can be said for most drafts. Although it's this is a large draft. We have over 2,000 people who are participating in this draft so far, so you really have to be ahead of the curve, right?
And I think it's a good point. It's not a little bit. It's almost a little bit like doing a DFS lineup to some degree, right? There's a lot of consensus, and if you stick with it, there might be ability to break the trend and actually separate from the pack.
So Scott Fish has a question here. He's like, Jorge, Jeremy, do you think with the new kickoff setting that more skilled players try their hand at kickoffs? I'll hang up and listen. Yes.
Well, thanks, Scott. Appreciate you as a caller. It's great. Love it. Go ahead, Jorge. I don't know. I think, if I'm the likes of, I don't want to say Debo because I'm not sure he would necessarily do it, although I think Debo as a kickoff returner would be insane. I think you could see some more flexibility there, some more dynamic plays versus it kind of being a placeholder position.
Yeah, I would love to see it. What I'm very curious, Scott, and I know I've bugged you about this a lot, and I know IDP will never enter the arena of Scott Fishbowl drafted. For me to even mention IDP and Scott Fishbowl is sacrilege. I get it. I got it. But there are cornerbacks, there are defensive players who take on a special teams role and can potentially be a skill player, dual skill player, punt returner. Is this potentially the only way we can get a random IDP thrown in the Scott Fishbowl, is having them be eligible as a kick returner? I don't know. Speaking of I don't know, I got to figure out who I'm going to be picking next. Jeremy, while I'm trying to figure out who I'm picking next, can you give the guys and gals a recap of?
Sure. So I think last week, to round out the end of the first round, we had the end of, I think, or not the end, but close to the end of the round of quarterbacks here. We had Pat Mahomes to Cubby Bear, CJ Stroud to All-Star Andrew, then followed up by Tyreek Hill, Trey McBride, and Jamar Chase to close out the round. Starting out round two in a traditional snake, we had Amon-Ra St. Brown, Mark Andrews, Joe Burrow, Dalton Kincaid. Don't know who Austin Kincaid is. My attorney, maybe. Kyle Pitts, Justin Jefferson, middle of the second round. Would love to talk about that one. Followed up with the final probably tier of the high upside rushing quarterbacks with Anthony Richardson and Drew 3MR taking Kyler Murray with JT Orange about a little over halfway on the clock. So you've got about 45 seconds at best to think about your pick, Jorge, before you've got to make a decision. But, interesting here. Not shocking that you probably have a lot of high upside tight ends going, or volume tight ends, certainly with Andrews and McBride. I think, the Justin Jefferson upside, and I think we're going to see this a lot in our regular drafts in August, unless some crazy hype comes in. For Jefferson to be going here middle of the second round, realistically in your normal redraft probably is mid first round-ish. For a guy who's just been constantly producing, it's an interesting spot for him to land. What are you seeing, Jorge, with someone like Justin Jefferson this offseason and the talk around? And do you think that's a reasonable spot, Scott Fishbowl or not, thinking of him as like the wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6?
I think whoever drafts him this August or in Scott Fishbowl in a middle of any round is getting a steal. JJ McCarthy, look, I think he's one of those very few rare, quarterback proof wide receivers. I think, and that's just it. People are going to be so scared off that Kirk Cousins is just not the quarterback in Minnesota anymore. And by default, people are going to be like, JJ McCarthy, I heard that he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn his very first practice in the NFL. And then they kind of like ignore the whole, well, he's been doing fine since then. And damn you, JT Orange, in your auto draft taking. Wait, did he take? No, what did he do? He did not take that person. Okay, yay! I'm going Bijan Robinson here for my next pick. I was trying to go tight end, truth be told, but I just didn't like who I was seeing there at the tight end position. I liked what I heard earlier in the week out of Bijan Robinson, even though it's June talk, so take that for what it's worth. But he was saying how he plans to be utilized a little bit like how Kyron Williams and Christian McCaffrey were used in their respective offenses, which is great for the rushing attempts. So you get that 0.25 per rush attempt, 0.5 per first down, plus the 1 point for every 10 yards. So I'm liking Bijan right there. And then boom, we have Puka Nacua and Evan Ingram go off the board. Then bam, third round reversal, starting all over again. It just comes at you that fast.
So interesting, Jorge. I'm curious what you've seen from Scott Fishbowl drafting in the past. I think traditionally you see sort of that RB a little bit still, even with last year with all the wide receivers that went in the first round. You still had an RB run that usually was in round 2, 3 because people were like, I got to start 2 running backs traditionally, so I need to make sure I grab at least one stud RB, unless I'm just going full RB0 or something, and you just stick with an RB hero or more traditional route. With only needing to start 1 and 6 flex spots, do you find that you're kind of not as pressured to feel like you need to fill that spot? And do you find that's liberating, or it's just causing more anxiety when you have to go through a draft like that?
I love it. I don't think this is the fact that it says 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 1 wide receiver. I don't care. It's the freedom of all the different flex options that you have there. It's like, give me all the options. I like all the options. I'd rather have a lot of options for some really good players versus very few options for a lot of not really good players. So damn it, that's the quarterback I was going with right there, John McGlynn. You doubling up Anthony Richardson and Jaden Daniels. That is a smart thing you just did there.
To catch you up a little bit on the chat, Jorge, so Scott Fish did say as soon as we can convince Sleeper to allow a flex spot to be an IDP, we're in. So I think we just need to do some lobbying to at Sleeper.
Well, they always respond whenever I talk to them about IDP.
Every time. I can't stand it. I'm the same way.
No, they respond. And then it's like, well, it's not on our list of things to do right now, but maybe we'll get to it in a few months. And then that turns.
So get at them in the comments, everybody. We got to get Sleeper to give put more respect on the name of IDP, because I don't know what I was doing all my years playing DSTs. Honestly, it was just a waste of a draft spot. No brain power put to it, and frankly, no fun. It wasn't like one less spot I'm rooting for, paying attention that week. But all right, so to catch up, we heard in round 3 on our reversal, we had Dak after Brees. We had Dak, Garrett Wilson, my boy AJ Brown, go Eagles, Marvin Harrison Jr. Probably I think in about the appropriate spot in terms of wide receivers off the board this year. Jahmyr Gibbs, Jorge's new Lord and Savior of the Washington Commanders, the rookie quarterback, Mr. Daniels, followed by George Kittle, Saquon Barkley, Jorge's backup choice here in Jordan Love, and shuffle it with Caleb Williams, which I think is probably about the 12th quarterback off the board. 2, 3, 5, 7, 8. I can do math. Yeah, it's about 12. So you've got your top 12 quarterbacks off the board towards the end of round 3. So that means you've got roughly a third of the starting quarterbacks in the league out. How does that come into play for you, Jorge, in a Superflex league, even let alone, or the Scott Fishbowl settings? You've got your top 12 quarterbacks are off the board. Are you looking now to try and scramble for somebody in the middle, look for upside at the end, or just see what falls to you?
Well, let's see here. Now that I am on the clock, I wanted to take when I feel are one of the top quarterbacks here. Obviously, there's not a lot of rushing upside. We didn't see Jordan Love just scramble all over the field last year, but you saw him when he had to pick up the yardage and the first downs do so. and there are just so many receiving weapons in Green Bay. I feel like the passing volume, even though passing yards is going to be diluted this year, I still think the volume of passing that Jordan Love will have will help to kind of diminish the diminishing of the passing yardage points, if you get what I'm saying here. To go into now what my thought process is here. If you've noticed, I do not have a wide receiver. I do want to get a wide receiver here on the board. I'm going to go against ADP. I want to go for one of my guys here. I want to go with somebody who just got a really good contract from the Houston Texans. I'm going to go Nico Collins here.
I love that pick, Jorge.
You like what the Texans are doing. No, I'm not scared of was Stephon Diggs, even though go Terps. I'm not scared of Stephon Diggs too much. I do like Nico and with the chemistry he developed with CJ Stroud last year. So, that's
your go Terps pride is appreciated, but also Darius Hayward Bay. So it's not always going to work out for you. I'll just give a plug again for anybody whose news dropped in the chat. Welcome. We are well into round 4 of our first Scott Fish Bowl 14 draft for the year. Reverse in round 3. So if you, like me, have never seen one of these before and went, my God, this is insanity. It's a little bit, but it's a lot of fun. And also, if you've not done this before, like myself, and I'm not eligible, I'm just making sure I'm not stacking the deck. Scott Fish, who is in our chat, has bestowed upon Jorge, and to a lesser degree myself, the ability to give out one coveted Scott Fish Bowl draft spot. So if you have not already indicated in the chat, that you are yearning and pining for one, please drop it in there so we can keep track. Love people that are engaged in the chat as we keep going along. And speaking of keep going along, after the Nico Collins love and random reference to Darius Hayward Bay, we have Brock Bowers, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Brock Purdy, Justin Herbert, rounding out the middle of the 4th round by Cubby Bear 214. I'm assuming that's either an area code, you're born on Valentine's Day, or that's the code to your gym locker.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, that's
same combination I got on my luggage.
Exactly.
So Jorge, as we're going through, any big surprises jump out to you, high or low on ADP? I'll note Scott Fish was also mentioning in the chat Rashid Shaheed maybe getting some more love with the addition of the return points, whether he's somebody who maybe should already be taken or should be consideration. Hopefully I didn't just tell someone to snipe him from you, but you don't have the luxury of being able to hide behind no microphone.
No, yeah, exactly. No, I want to say that Scott Fish did like a quote tweet or maybe tweeted Cooter Doodle on Twitter that Rashid Shaheed, who she's a huge fan of and has like tons of jerseys behind her in her office, that he was with like the top 5s in scoring using Scott Fish Bowl settings last year. I could be completely off my rocker just thinking about that, but I want to say that there was some Rashid Shaheed love in terms of using this scoring format for last year. In terms of players that are just jumping off, that are surprising me. Not really. You look at the tight ends. I guess let's look at that position for a second. You have Hawkinson, Goddard, Schultz, Komet, Freiermuth, Musgrave, Otten, Okonkwo. Targets are not exactly going to be flying these people's way. So it's not like you can have to worry about rushing or having the need to go rush and get these players, right? Like they're going to be there for you. So I feel like there's a lot of talent there still at other positions that you could focus on. The quarterback position, at this point, you're just hoping for passing volume. So a lot of the quarterbacks, like you had mentioned a few minutes ago, are, you're hoping for high volume passing upside. You know what I mean? So I think the running back and the wide receiver positions are probably the ones that people are going to want to go after next. They really take advantage of, the aspects of the half PPR or full PPR nature.
That all makes sense. Why don't I give you a second to and thinking about that of what maybe wide receiver you want to take or volume quarterback you want to grab, I'll round out a little bit of a summary from where we left off after Cubby Bear combination locker Valentine's Day. We had Trevor Lawrence go to All-Star Andrew, followed by Devontae Adams to Lando Nice, maybe on an auto pick, unclear. Jared Garf go to BroCal 44. Schultze doing the corner with a David Njoku, Jake Ferguson, tight end stack. Next, Mike Evans, Brandon Ayuk, Malik Neighbors, Devon Achane, Rashad White, Michael Pittman, Chris Olave, and finally JT Orange, not on auto draft, potentially sniping you with Tua as you're looking for your second quarterback here, maybe Jorge. I will turn it over to you for your thought process. We can hear the inner workings and steam coming out of Jorge B. Edwards' ears.
Do you remember The Simpsons back in the day when it's like, what's going on?
I always remember The Simpsons back in the day, but go on.
See, that's what I love about you the most. I've known Jeremy for years, and he gets all my Simpsons references, but like the scene where it's like, look at Homer Simpson's head, and it's a monkey with like two symbols going psh, 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 psh. That's always what's going on in my head, Jeremy.
There's also one where he's just thinking of a little bear in a fez riding a little car in a carnival. That's another good one.
Yeah.
Although my favorite, I'll eat up some airtime. Oh, you picked Debo. I love that Debo pick. I was just typing them up before. My favorite Homer Simpson brain joke is still the apple cider factory where he is talking to Ned Flanders and nodding along, and his brain eventually says, "Ugh, you could stay, but I'm leaving." Yellow and brown, you're in Cider Town. Anyway, before I potentially violate any license rights we don't have, Jorge, Deebo Samuel, you've got one tight end, one running back, one quarterback, one starting wide receiver, and your first official Scott Fishbowl flex spot with Deebo there. How are you feeling so far with your team?
I'm loving getting Deebo this late, especially because of the 0.25 points per rush attempt. You know that Deebo's going to get plenty of rush attempts.
Manufactured plays for him there, right? It's great.
Yeah. The upside without injury is immense. But, let's face it, there is some risk that comes to having a player who is a wide receiver take on the physicality of, of the running back position. So, yeah, does he get banged up? Does he have a few bad games a year? Sure. Or he misses a few games a year? Sure. But the upside, I can't pass on the upside right now. I can't think about injuries right now. I got to think about what this person brings to the table and how it can impact my roster.
And always, I think that's a great point, Jorge. Especially with injuries, if you know it and they're out, that's helpful, right? Having those players who just are in games all season, it's nagging. You think they're injured, maybe they're not. That's the killer, right? That's going to sink your spot. So if you have somebody like Deebo, who, as far as I can tell, I don't recall Deebo ever being a player who seemed like he was ever playing half at any speed. So he's either in the game or he's clearly out, and you maybe lost a quarter or two for the week before, but you're going to be able to fill that spot with somebody else from your bench the following week or two, hopefully not too much more than that. But I think that's generally a good strategy to just ignore injury risk unless you buy into the injury dip like I did with Cooper Kupp in a bunch of leagues last year, and the rest was history. Following up from Deebo Samuel, you had Devontae Smith at the end of the 5th round, DJ Moore in the new high-octane Chicago Bears offense. Should be interesting to see them this year. As a strong fantasy and diehard Eagles, but general casual football fan, find that Chicago situation to just be super fascinating, and that Caleb Williams is already the best quarterback in Chicago Bears history is just incredible. Speaking of best quarterbacks in history, the Vikings' Kirk Cousin by Gingerbeard Man, James Cook, and Jalen Waddle is Jorge's pick in the 3rd spot in the 6th round to continue his run on wide receivers. Jorge,
yes, sir.
Your thoughts?
So I like the Cousins pick. If he was still available, I probably would have considered him as my second quarterback. So that was this very solid pick there. The DJ Moore pick, Dave Richard from CBS, he has been reporting from Bears camp or Bears OTAs this past week. And some of the things he would bring up is the fact that Keenan Allen has been getting a lot of attention from Caleb Williams. So the question you have to ask here is he the number one in Chicago just because DJ Moore has been there for a year? This is an entirely new situation, new new team, new quarterback, new coordinator. I don't know. I think that's something to pay attention to.
I know there's stats behind it. And again, when I was writing for Fantasy and Frames at one point, this was a thing I cared more to keep in my brain. But I recall something along the lines of historically incredibly difficult for a rookie quarterback to support, one top 12 wide receiver, let alone multiple. So if you're a betting man and you've got Caleb Williams somewhat in a unique situation here of a solid defense and a decent amount of offensive weapons around him for being the number one overall pick. And you think, well, historically, it hasn't been two. So if you're going to hedge and bet on one, and I'll let you celebrate in just a moment, Jorge, I don't know. You take your pick. You had to bet it's going to be Keenan Allen or DJ Moore as a top 12 wide receiver. Who blows up? Who has that potential?
I think it's Keenan Allen. I think he's an older wide receiver, obviously. And he's on a new team.
Factually correct.
You cannot. Thank you. You are factually correct. Thank you very much. But you cannot discount the fact that he is a perfect safety net for any quarterback, let alone a rookie quarterback coming into the league. And you just mentioned celebrating. Woo! Fantasy and Frames on YouTube. We are now over 950 subscribers, folks. Not
awesome.
my wildest dreams.
Awesome.
We would be here right now.
I remember when I was subscriber 3.
Exactly. Thank you so much, everybody. For those who are trickling into the draft and are seeing what's going on, if you would please head over to our YouTube and hit that subscribe button as well as our notification bell so that way you're notified when Fantasy and Frames puts out Fantasy and Frames or fantasy football content. We got Dynasty, Redraft, IDP, college, best ball, you name it. So thank you very much for all your support, and we will not let you down.
So I'll do a little recap, Jorge. We've got Jalen Waddle was your pick, followed by George Pick'ems, DJ Meow Metcalf. I'm just going to come up with nicknames as we go down here. Joe in the batter, Mixon, Alvin, Oh My Kamara, TJ Hawkins Strappinson, Isaiah Pacheco, Stefan digging your own grave because it seems like that's where he's headed at this point. Kenneth, I need a walker, so I'm not a fall guy. Cooper, a little cup of coffee. Shout out to Matthew Berry. And finally, Amari, I already made a cup. I'm sorry, Cooper, cup of coffee, and I already made a cup joke. So now, I guess we'll do a hanging with an Amari Cooper joke. This is the material you came here, folks. You didn't know I was here.
Hanging with Mr. Cooper. The hanging with Mr. Cooper. I was just like humming that theme song the other day. I was like, what is that a theme song? I'm like, Mr. Cooper.
Hey, I don't think that was a Jesse McCartney jam. Not McCarthy. Don't get at me at the comments. Jesse McCartney was your songbird for Full House, Family Matters, Step by Step, and there might be another one sitting in there. I don't think he was hanging with Mr. Cooper, but look him up. Look him up, people. He doesn't get his respect.
I'll be damned.
Speaking of not getting his respect, here's your boy, Keenan Allen, back of the front of the 7th round, a full a little over a round away from DJ Moore. So you're looking at value. Maybe that's where Keenan Allen's real value will be, even in August.
Yeah, I mean, I know in Dynasty, like you want to get younger assets as your players get older. I have Keenan Allen right now in my dynasty in the Dynasty League. One of the Dynasty Leagues I just won from last year. And as I feel like I'm a contender, I'm not getting rid of him at all. I'm going to ride this thing into the ground. I don't care. Talent is talent. Production is production. So I'm all aboard Keenan Allen regardless of format here. We got Chris Batto still in the chat. Jeremy, beer pong legend from the Expo a year ago.
Love it, Chris. Also had the pleasure of introducing Chris to Waffle House for the first time ever, that crazy Canuck. He was hooked. You should go. If you're looking for me at the Expo this year, I will be there probably Friday morning or Saturday morning, late and early, scarfing down some smothered and covered hash browns. Come join me. Come join Jorge. come join our good friend Ken and probably more of the Fantasy and Frames and Fantasy and Frames legacy crew.
Absolutely, 100%.
But we've got after our Keenan Allen wrench, man, it's getting late here, guys. We got. I'm just gonna hold on until I find a good pun. We got Aaron Jones, followed by our star Andrew with Zay Flowers, our auto pick of Cubby this time with T. Higgins, Zamir White, which I find is an interesting discussion point still of is Zamir White that guy or is he just a guy? Pat Fryermuth as one of our later tight ends getting taken here, although I think we've got at least one team that doesn't have a tight end still. And we've got interesting, I think this one you should really comment on, Jorge. We've got the wide receiver mate of your round 4 pick of Nico Collins, Tank Dell going in the 7th round. Talk to me, Jorge. You want to talk to Zamir White as a guy or that guy, or Tank versus Nico?
Let's do both. I think Zamir White is that guy in that situation, in that good of a situation. Yes, whereas the efficiency metrics, superstar level, I don't know about superstar level, but they were good, and he was getting plenty of volume last year. Whether that continues this year, I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns there, but if you're going based off of what you saw last year, I think that he is definitely somebody who, in this case, for Big Bones here in this draft here as his 4th running back, that's pretty solid value, I think, for a starting running back for a team. And we know Antonio Pierce, former Commanders and Giants linebacker in the NFL, now head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. We know that he is somebody who loves to run the ball. All right. Drew 3MR. I know I'm going to catch hell for this one. But I want to get a second tight end here, and I give him shit all the time, excuse my language, about Dallas Goedert and him not being that great for fantasy. And we had this going thing last year where it's like, I'm Dalton Schultz, and he's like, I'm Dallas Goedert. And I'm like, we'll see who finishes with the best. And I'm like, whoop, whoop, victory. But I already have a piece of the Texans.
Victory because Dallas Goedert was injured for half the year, but sure.
Well, no, even when he was healthy, he still wasn't.
No, it's a good point. I shouldn't step on that point. It is a good one, Jorge, because I do think you saw a direct correlation last year between your Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, who got the rest of what A.J. Brown left behind in the pie, right? And now you have Saquon coming into the mix. We know is going to get some catches out of the backfield. And traditionally, where do we see pass-catching running backs take away the volume? It's not from your down-the-field threats. It's going to be from your guys closer to the line of scrimmage. In this case, it'd be Dallas Goedert. So I do think as an Eagles fan, from a fantasy perspective, I am nervous about Dallas Goedert this year. I hope to be wrong, and maybe it's just an efficiency play that everybody's got to cover A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and Saquon, that Dallas Goedert can just get the weaker side of the coverage. But look, I think there's some risk this year with him. So you're not wrong in thinking of a risk last year, and you're not wrong thinking about it this year. But, as your second tight end, I want to say, in the 7th round, you also, beggars can't be choosers, right? So you got to pick somebody as we're getting to this point in the draft. And speaking of that, so I will give you a moment to kind of ponder what you're thinking, Jorge. We had Jorge with Dallas Goedert at the end of the 7th, followed by I'm about to set his teammate, but no longer teammate, with DeAndre Swift, followed by Christian Kirk to round out round 7. Kicking off round 8, Terry McLaurin, who I feel like Jorge probably has the most mixed feelings ever about players. That Terry McLaurin's got to be up there in terms of desire to be that huge talent, and just it. I don't want to say it hasn't clicked because it obviously has, but man, last year he killed your squad. And then Rome Odunze rounding out right before Jorge. So, sorry, you fume on that while you're also thinking about your pick here in the 8th round.
Appreciate that.
Anytime. I will say, do you know what? I'll let you think about your pick. And the one thing I want to shout out to Jesse for saying I have no faith in McCarthy. I read that as McCartney and thought you were besmirching the name of Jesse McCartney that I had just spoken about earlier. But fortunately, you did not. Props to you. With that interlude and allowing Jorge a little bit of time to select the volume running back, probably still out of Pittsburgh with Najee. I'll turn it back over to Jorge. You've got Terry McLaurin to stew on. You talk about Najee, or actually what is also, I think, an interesting pick here with Jordan Addison going late in the 8th round here.
Everywhere you look, everywhere.
I'm sure this is going to sync up perfectly for everyone else.
Exactly. Exactly. Look, I think what's his name? The former Falcon said Arthur Smith. Thank you. Going to Pittsburgh is right up there in terms of one of the great combinations in terms of a coach and a running back. Specifically in this case, Najee Harris. The rush attempts should be there. The first down should be there. You know, we saw Najee towards the end of last year pick it up in terms of production and efficiency. Not anywhere you are comfortable taking him in the first couple rounds of redraft this year, but definitely for this format, for the rush attempt there, you know, Arthur Smith is going to run the ball there. So give me some Najee, give me some of those 0.25 per rush attempt points.
I was gonna say buy and sell you is riding that train with you in the chat, saying Najee a pretty low risk, high reward at 0.25 points per carry, and that's an interesting one where I think Jorge, you're going to see Najee get pushed down a lot in your standard leagues for that. Your non-Scott Fishbowl scoring for that reason that don't just give a volume running back a little bit more of an edge, even if you're not necessarily that efficient with them. But I guess, you know, we'll see. There's probably going to be all sorts of hype coming out of Steelers camp about Najee looking in the best that he's looked in. Arthur Smith's offense is, you know, the fountain of youth that he's been awaiting. And then our good friend Ryan is going to probably be texting us on the first week going, burn it all down now, keep Tomlin and burn the rest of it. And speaking of burning things down, that has nothing to do with Chris Godwin, who was the next selection on the board, followed by Ramondre Stevenson, someone whose stock I did wish I burned last year, as I was heavily invested in Ramondre. We'll see what he does with New England and the revamped offense this year. And then we got another young wide receiver out of Kansas City here, followed by David Montgomery, and I'll start Andrew with the next pick. I'll admit, I cheated on that because I went H. Brown in Kansas City, and I thought, I am not 100% off the top of my head remembering who that is. So just being honest here, folks. You come here, I am not a fantasy football analyst anymore. I have 2 small children, and they suck up all of my ability to put anything else in my brain.
Your references, though, are on point. They haven't sucked up your ability to put
because that's in my long-term memory bank where, hey, nothing will take the Simpsons out of my brain short of a lobotomy.
Nice. Yes, we are Hollywood Browning it. All-Star and Drew, time's up.
Hollywood.
What you doing?
I knew in the off-season, too. It's too late, guys. This is late. This is late for me to be doing anything efficient. But, sorry, Jorge, let's chime in. We talked Dallas Goedert. We talked a little Najee. We talked a little bit of Tank Dell. What are you thinking for someone like Ramondre this year? Is he going to be left for dead in the back here? We were talking top 3 upside last year, right? I mean, just so much potential there. Whoa, look at this.
So we have Zach FF Chalupa Batman joining us right now, the director of content here at Fantasy and Frames. Sorry to interrupt you, Jeremy, but he jumped on, and he rarely comes on Fantasy and Frames broadcasts. So my jaw hit the floor when I saw him enter the studio. Zach, what's going on, brother?
How's it going? It's been a while since I've been on the stream with you guys, but I've been watching, and Madison's asleep. I mean, the boys have been asleep, so I'm like, let me hop on real quick.
Nice. Very nice.
Zach, anything that makes you like jump for joy or cringe in this draft so far that we've been scoping on, other than my dulcet tones for Jesse McCartney?
I love all the dulcet tones. No, nothing really has yet. The beauty of the scoring and the setting is like you can do whatever you want, and I've learned from I've done Scott Fishbowl a handful of years now. As much as I enjoy mock drafting. I don't know, just drafting with the good vibes is really the way to go when you finally get in the draft. Not overthink it, especially with the scoring. I mean, it doesn't matter which way you go. If you pick the wrong player, you're gonna lose anyway. So have fun with it. it's a massive league. We're looking at 3,600 plus people. So if you want to win the whole thing, by all means, good luck to you. But you got to get different. You got to have fun with it. I mean, I definitely noticed that people are a lot more excited after they draft a team that they like are happy with the players they picked, as opposed to trying to like outmath everybody, and then you get a bunch of players you didn't really want. So just have fun with it.
So we may have a special guest joining us pretty soon for those who are paying attention in the chat. So this will be a first. Also, I have not shared the screen with him in forever. So for those who are in the chat and those who are just filing in right now, those who are retweeting the tweet for the show, keep coming. We will be giving away a Scott Fishbowl 14 spot today. Thank you very much for those who are still with us. Just to, tease it out, we're going to keep going. We're not going to give it away just yet. But trust me, we will be giving away a Scott Fishbowl 14 spot to somebody tonight. And so, well, here is the guest of honor right now. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring in the creator of Scott Fishbowl, Mr. Scott Fish.
What's going on, guys?
How are you, sir?
Doing well. It's a fun night. The family's gone, so I wanted to find a live stream that was doing a mock and hang out for a little bit, watch to see what's going on. It's pretty cool. That was it happened to be a site that I'm a big fan of. Obviously, I'm a big fan of yours, Jorge, and all the work you've done over the last few years, all the people you've supported. It's very cool. Very cool.
Well, thank you very much. And nothing's as cool as Scott Fishbowl. I got to be honest with you. It is. I was telling somebody in the sleeper chat earlier today. There is nothing like Scott Fishbowl in terms of rallying the fantasy community together just to have a good time playing this awesome game that we love. And so the fact that you put so much into it, and it's just seeing the growth it's had, and it's gone from being a small tournament to a mid to a large tournament to now an international tournament. Like this is it's crazy. It's amazing. Like did you ever anticipate it being as big as it is right now?
Oh God, no. The first year we did it, it was 96 teams. A bunch of people flaked out. We actually decreased it for year 2 to 60 teams. And this is back in a time when a 96 team or a 60 team league was considered absolutely insane. Like you see them around nowadays, but back then it was just like, it was crazy talk. Then we took a year off and we decided, I decided I really felt like this could be something. And I just kept hammering every person I knew in the industry to try to play. And it just steamrolled from there. And I never expected it to be even close to what it is now. And it's incredible. It's incredible the way the community has rallied and everything that SFB has done, whether it be, just on the fantasy side or just the good it's done is not, it's just it's the community that has done it. It's all of us together. It's all of us banding together. It doesn't it's incredible what we can do together.
If I can give you a little bit of a flower, Scott, and it's great meeting you for the first time, is again, I led off and said, I'm going to help Jorge co-host a Scott Fishbowl mock draft, having never been in the Scott Fishbowl in my life. But I got to say, I am not I was more into analysis and helped Jorge at the early stages here and been very close with the Fantasy and Frames crew. And I'm on Twitter, I guess X now, every so often, but not terribly active. When Scott Fishbowl invites start going out, my feed just explodes. So I just want you to know from the perspective of somebody who's just not in this every day, you have such a reach with this, and it's such a positive thing that people are probably, I get it, it's like wedding announcements, baby announcements. I got my Scott Fishbowl invitation. Like that's what hits my Twitter feed at this point that gets promoted. So just shout out to you for everything you put together here.
I appreciate that. I think half of those tweets are probably Zach replying with a GIF or GIF, whatever you want to call it. But
celebration GIF.
You put it in the rules, Scott, so I had to continue to follow through.
Yeah, I did. I did put in the rules temporarily there. That first day this year. So we've trended number 2 on Twitter, not just like sports Twitter or whatever, like full on Twitter. We've trended number 2 twice in history. Once the day Tim Duncan retired, so we couldn't take number 1 from that. But
what a jerk.
Yeah, I know, right? But we trended number 1 the day the first wave of invites. About 1,000 invites went out, and we trended number 1 on Twitter, not just sports Twitter or For You or whatever. It was legit. My parents logged on to check it out, and they saw it too. Like, just legit number 1 on Twitter, which is just absolutely insane what this has become over the years. But the best part is it's all for good, and every bit of that trending, every bit of word of mouth just helps, does more good, and it's really wonderful what we are all able to band together and do.
No, 100%. And I kind of want to give some kudos to Zach, who's been. When him and I have conversations in terms of anything Scott Fishbowl related, he is like super excited, super, wanting to get involved. And Zach, maybe you can tell us a little bit about like what makes you so excited about Scott Fishbowl and the fact that you're covering 2 locations this year, if memory serves me correctly. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm helping out at Cincinnati Live, and I'll be hosting Orlando Live. But I know it's just a great tournament. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I was not involved in the fantasy community whatsoever. Until I got into, I think I did a mirror back then. It was Satellite Mirror League of Scott Fishbowl 9. I'd never heard of it. Just popped in right at the last second. It was a lot of fun, and then you just meet more and more people. But yeah, it's just everyone's so, for most of the part, positive. It's for charity. I mean, I got to shop for the first time for Toys for Tots this past year. Brought my family along. Like, that was a blast. It was hard to explain to my middle son that these gifts weren't for him, because we were having to pick him out because he was 4, just turned 4 at the time. So we were like, pick out what you like, but you're not keeping them. Like, we're giving to other people. But that was still a great experience for them and for me. And then now just doing the lives, it's just been so much fun growing all the lives and seeing how much they've grown. I mean, we went from many lives, Scott, maybe like 10 the first year, and now we're at 32.
Yeah, I think it was 12 the first year, 17 the second, and now 32, 33 this year.
Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun. I mean, the amount of, for all these raffles that most of the cities are doing, like the amount of prizes we have, the amount of money we're raising on raffle tickets. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's insane. And for those of you out there that are watching that aren't in Scott Fishbowl, it's okay. You can still come to the lives. I think almost all of them, if not all of them, are open to the public.
Yep.
Come hang out. You also never know if anyone's not going to show up, and then we need to fill somebody. So gives you another opportunity, but it also helps you meet someone like one of the hosts that can kind of help vouch for your name the next year too. Like, hey, this person was awesome. They helped out a lot. Like, I think they'd be a great addition to come on. So it never hurts to hang out with everybody else too. It's a lot of fun, and you might win some prizes too. And it's for charity. Yep. So if you can make it to a live, try to go.
And now I've discovered a great way that I can also support a charity while also doing some early Christmas shopping that my kids will be unaware of and just sneak them into the pile. This is brilliant. I love everything. You know what? I'm gonna try. If not this year, Scott, I'm definitely gonna try for it next year.
Nice.
You got at least one more coming.
Well, speaking of one more person entering Scott Fishbowl this year, we are very close, folks, to announcing who the lucky winner is of the Scott Fishbowl 14 spot that Scott was so generous to donate to us to give away tonight. Jumping back a little bit here, though, in the draft.
Oh, right. We're doing that.
Yeah, that's still going on.
All right, here we go. All the puns in 30 seconds. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
All right, Jeremy, you got like 4 rounds to go through in like 20 seconds.
I can Micro Machine Man it if you want to, but I think people would probably rather hear what any interesting pitch you think in particular, other than your Dan Jones in round 10.
I wonder what percentage of the audience gets that reference. Like the Micro Machine Man, like I do. I'm guessing most of this panel does.
I mean, my gray hair probably gives it away, although that's genetics, folks. I'm a spry chicken, not yet 40. but don't tell July. Not yet 40.
So Scott, we got a question for you. What's the closest that you have ever come to winning Scott Fishbowl?
Second
Wow.
overall. Yeah, I've made the semifinals quite a bit. I've made the playoffs 10 or 11 of 13 years. I've made the semifinals well over half the time, but second overall is my best finish. I lost to Mike Clay of now of ESPN. He was with PFF at the time. Yeah. But second overall is my best finish.
Very nice.
Was that your epitaph? I lost to Mike Clay one day.
Yeah, and I've already got it set up to be on my gravestone.
That's smart.
It's in my will.
You're thinking ahead. You're a planner, Scott. It's important.
Lost to Mike Clay. Yeah.
So it's actually, I'm glad you say Mike Clay, not Mike, because Zach gives me crap about this all the time. That whenever I mention Mike Clay by name or have a conversation or even say hello to Mike Clay, I can never call him Mike. He's forever known. It's like, it's a two names come at once. It's always, hi, Mike Clay. How you doing, Mike Clay? I was speaking to Mike Clay. Like, even he knows by now, like, here comes Jorge. You just can't say Mike or Mr. Clay. It's Mike Clay. I'm like, a little fun fact there.
Even on an airplane.
Even on air, I had such an awkward conversation. I'll have to tell you this off air one day, Scott, about the first time I tried to introduce myself ever so awkwardly at Mike to Mike Clay. And, yeah, on an airplane. I'll tell you.
It's a very good story.
But I digress.
I look forward to
it. To go back to Jeremy, what you were asking about Daniel Jones, look, 10th round rushing quarterback. When healthy, he was a couple years ago. I want to say he was close to being an inside top 12 quarterback because of that rushing upside. I wanted to take advantage of that. Obviously, we know for Scott Fishbowl 14 that the rushing quarterback has an advantage, or more so than your traditional stationary quarterback. So I'm coming up here on the clock soon. Jeremy, when we get to the beginning of the 12th round, do you want to announce the winner of the Scott Fishbowl 14 spot?
I would be honored.
All right.
No, sorry, go ahead.
So we're talking about Daniel Jones real quick. I mean, I don't know if this is a hot take. Do we think he starts more half of the season because they owe him a lot of money if he gets hurt? And if we're not expecting the Giants to do very well, it wouldn't shock me if Drew Lock plays more of the season than Daniel Jones does.
Yep. And so just taking Derek Carr because, you just never know if Daniel Jones is going to play.
I think they owe him like $27 million. It's in the 20s if he gets hurt, kind of like the Russell Wilson, Derek Carr situations from the previous seasons.
Touche, sir. Touche. Good call. Yep. That's good to know.
Just a thought. Say, shout out to another round 11 quarterback. Personally, I really like the Will Levis select.
See, I got mine right over here. Yeah, exactly. Supporting. Great plug there, Scott. Great plug.
I didn't want to plug it on the Scott Fishbowl draft.
But I was going to say my props to the Will Levis selection. I just think that's an interesting late flyer here in the Scott Fishbowl scoring format, particularly because, look, that's either going to work or it's going to crash and burn fabulously, I think, in Tennessee. So you got an interesting lottery ticket there. But while I've got the air and per Jorge's suggestion to announce to a great commenting crowd here, and it's great to have Scott on the board here, and we got Zach seeing his face, which has been awesome. I also haven't seen it in forever, and so thank you all for being here. I'm holding it out, making it so you hold on to every word, but would love to announce that we have our winner of the Scott Fishbowl draft selection for Scott Fishbowl 14 is Derek Swanson. Give it up for Derek Swanson. That's the person you should hate because that is who got selected by my random number generator. Except you, Derek. You go celebrate.
Yes, hate the number generator, not the person. Exactly.
That's right.
Congratulations, Derek Swanson. You won the Scott Fishbowl 14 spot here. Just just a great opportunity. Scott, again, you reached out before we went live. Thank you so much, man. That's so generous of you to do that. And
absolutely. And we will need to get some more information on Derek. So I know which one to add to SFB. Make sure you signed up. But we have dozens of Swansons. I just checked and we have 2 Derek Swansons. So I'm not sure which one it is. Like
this Derek Swanson is at the J-Knobs. You can just send it right there.
This makes me think of the GIF though. There's dozens of us.
Okay. All right. Let me look that.
Is there? You say there's a Swanson. Is there a Swami and is there a Samsonite? You go back to that.
I love the dummy.
It's because we're out of Bort Twitter handles. That's why I repeat, we're out of Bort Twitter handles.
Love it. Yeah, so if we can get some information, if you could just Derek, when you get a chance, DM. How would you like this to go down, Scott? You want to DM me and then I can DM you, or DM you directly?
Yeah, that's fine. Anything works. We'll figure it out.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. So just Derek, just DM me at Jorge B. Edwards, JorgeBedwards, and I will put you in contact with Scott Fish. And congratulations on making it to the dance, and can't wait to compete with you, and can't wait for you to have a great time playing.
Oh, I love it, Derek Sampson.
And your invite goes on the next wave. It's not like instant.
Yes, thank you, Zach.
Personal Derek
people
Swanson.
think it's right away. No,
everyone
I think
freaks
there
out.
should be a personal Derek Swanson only wave to only the people named Derek Swanson.
Yeah, it's we're nearing 44,000 people signed up. So like with a name like Swanson, there's going to be a lot of people. So yeah. Good job. Congratulations, Derek. That's awesome.
Nice. I'm looking at the board here, and you mentioned Will Levis. Let's go back a couple spots to the beginning of the 11th round. Brian Robinson. I'm actually a huge Brian Robinson fan this year for the Washington Commanders, and no, it's not just my bias kicking in here. And that's because I like the addition of Anthony Lynn, the running backs coach, who was formerly I believe he was either the coordinator or the running back coach for the Buffalo Bills when they had LaShawn McCoy and all the successful years they had there. And then when he went to San Diego / Los Angeles, and he turned Melvin Gordon into fantasy gold, which that was a brutal few years until Melvin Gordon started going. But then he had familiarity with Austin Eckler, who coincidentally is in Washington also.
Yeah, I was going to say, doesn't that worry you with Lynn and Eckler?
I don't think so. I think we saw with Eckler and Melvin Gordon that it was mostly the attempts are giving to the non-pass catching running back, and it's just Eckler just happened to take those touches and work magic with them, right? Obviously, it's been some time since that has been the case. But I think it's another thing that for Brian Robinson, everybody's expecting Jaden Daniels to pass for all these yards and rush for all these yards. Well, he's not going to be able to do, both, at such a high level. Like they're going to have to protect him a little bit, and I think they're going to really emphasize the running game there. So I like that, especially for the 0.25 yards per carry.
And
is there
another thing?
Go ahead.
I was going to say another thing on that is Eckler has preached for years how he's wanted to complement another back. He's wanted to extend his career by sharing the workload with another back. And Anthony Lynn's years there, the Austin Eckler big years, I mean, Joe Lombardi has targeted the running back target-wise at a top 5 rate 10 years in a row. And that was a lot of Austin Eckler's big years, is that, Joe Lombardi years. And he's now in Denver. So we're going to get to see what Anthony Lynn does with this situation. And maybe it's more of a share like you think. And maybe Brian Robinson is more of that bell cow back, with Austin Eckler, being more of a role player and extending his career. I like that take.
Also thinking.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jorge.
No, please go ahead.
I was just looking in terms of, you're in the mid to late rounds here, Scott Fishbowl draft, huge bench, lots of flex spots. Where do you go? Curtis Samuel, I think, is an interesting selection back here. There's no one else on this depth chart that should scare you if you're thinking about Curtis Samuel, from my opinion. And
Chase
0.25 a rush. Yeah, I'm sorry, Matt Collins, former Go Eagles. Forgot about him. I think you get. Do they try and use Curtis Samuel like they did in Washington? Can they manufacture some end arounds or some rushes out of the backfield? Handful of those could be a difference maker for you in a flex spot on a bye week.
I actually like the repairing of Curtis Samuel and Joe Brady from their time in Carolina, because I think that's actually where you saw Curtis Samuel have his best fantasy season, and that was right before he went to Washington. I believe it was the following season he followed Rivera to Washington. So I'm looking forward to that. But we had Jim Coventry join us on our Dynasty 365 show earlier in the week, and they were talking about how the Buffalo Bills don't really pass that much to the slot wide receiver, and so he actually did drop Matt Collins' name as a potential outside target. Again, I don't know what to make of that, but it's one of those things where you had to think about where the targets are going.
You're not taking him over Khalil Shakir probably, but round 22, you could probably get Matt Collins.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good take. Scott, being the resident Minnesota Viking fan, I do have a couple questions for you. One, somewhat serious, one not so serious. What are your thoughts on the whole Aaron Jones, Ty Chandler debate going on here? As far as is one going to predominate touches early on, and then one's going to fade away, or is this a good 1-2 combination, or do you think this is Aaron Jones's backfield?
Scott's already in a cold sweat. You can see it.
So that second part is the interesting part. Is one going to fade away? Is Ty Chandler going to come up late? I can tell you from everything I've heard up here, and I have friends who go to the mandatory training camps, friends who are pretty inside, media friends up here in Minneapolis. Aaron Jones looks explosive through holes, and it's his job. That's what I hear and see up here. The question is, does Ty Chandler play in later? I know that Kevin O'Connell does love Ty Chandler, but even last year, even up to mid-season until Madison started getting hurt, Kevin O'Connell continued to say there are things Ty Chandler needs to learn, pickups he needs to learn. Aaron Jones is a longtime vet. I think it's completely his job early on. The real question is, how long does he hold it, and is there a split later in the season? But if you're looking early in the season, it's hard to believe it's anything but Aaron Jones.
Do you recall, Scott, offhand, what's the commitment they made to Aaron Jones in terms of years? And
it's just 1 year.
It's 1 year. That's what I thought.
Yeah, it was just 1 year. Yep.
The second question, which me being a jersey collector and a mini helmet collector, is what do you make of those new uniforms that just came out this past week, the winter? Because I thought those looked pretty freaking amazing. What are your thoughts on them?
They're very sweet. I love them. They're only going to wear them for the December Chicago Bears game. It's just a 1-game thing. It's a whiteout game. I actually went with my son to that same game last year. It was the Lions game that they did it for last year. But I think they're sweet. Honestly, I don't know that I can spend $130 to go get one of them, but I really enjoyed them. I wouldn't mind one of those helmets though. The helmets look really nice.
Nice. Zach, since the scoring has been announced, honest question, how many mock drafts have you participated in?
0. And I will probably do 0 mock drafts other than hopping on someone's show or helping out with an industry mock draft. I've learned over the years that mock drafts do not help me in Scott Fishbowl. And I am a huge supporter of everybody doing them. And if that's fun for you, by apps, do 1,000 of them, have fun. It just does not help me. I like seeing all the information that comes out on Twitter though of like the ADP from them and all the different stats. Like I can't remember who it is now. I bookmarked it, but someone posted like the VORP for scoring and how like tight ends is drastically dips after a certain point. So stuff like that is what I need to help me prepare for Scott Fish. Mocks do not help me anymore.
There is one. We actually auctioned off one for charity last year. We have a bunch of SFB mini helmets, and we auctioned off an actual real helmet last year. Shane Hallam won it. That exists, but I'm with Zach, man. I don't do mocks. I don't do anything. I go with the flow when the day hits. That's what I do.
Good vibes.
I appreciate everyone doing it. I have other stuff going on.
So while I have you, Scott, since Fantasy Cares did all those wonderful like hats and scarves for like our warmer states like Florida where I am, can we get like some like sweet board shorts? Because I would love to wear like Scott Fishbowl or Fantasy Care board shorts.
Yeah, they've been in the works. I know Bob has been working on them because I requested we make some because I have to go to Vegas in 100-degree weather on the stadium swim in 3 weeks. So I know that it's in the works. I've seen the prototypes of them.
All right, fantastic.
I don't know when they'll be released, but I know that
I can wait. I'll buy
that
one.
exists.
It's definitely Juicy Couture style, though, right? It's just like right across the butt. Just
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Perfect.
It's for charity.
The sheer amount of stuff that I have that says my name, and it's not even Scott Fishbowl stuff. Like Under Armour has a line that's fish, like in Minnesota, because Minnesota has like 11,000 plus lakes. So like fish is a thing here. So I have a bunch of Under Armour fish gear. Like I think my whole wardrobe has my name on it at this point.
Mine too, but I had to go hire a guy. It was very expensive.
It all says knobs.
Exactly. All right, let's go to another player here that's kind of an interesting one, and it's Isaiah Likely, the 14th round, second pick here. It's hard to ignore, his production with Lamar Jackson last year, especially when Mark Andrews was out due to injury. It's hard to ignore Isaiah Likely's performance down the stretch the year before that when Lamar, I believe, was out, and I forget who was the quarterback.
Ty Huntley. But I think you can ignore the final week, the Week 18 game in which everybody was out and he got like 13 targets. Or I think you can ignore that one where it didn't mean anything.
That's fair.
Yeah. But I agree. And in this scoring, when a 10-yard first down can score 4 points for a tight end, it's really hard to ignore.
Absolutely. Ooh, our first kick. Oh, that's right, kickers. Damn it.
There's still a thing. I petitioned for years in our home leagues to get rid of kickers. I have been unsuccessful. Although we did move to the point per yard kicked format, which I felt was infinitely fairer, without frankly requiring too many people because I'm sure we all have those home leagues where you still have people that think it's 1999 and you're like, hey, this just breaks my brain that a 7-yard field goal and a 29-yard field goal are worth exactly the same amount of points. Why? So I think it's infinitely fairer, but I'm still in the end I'd much rather have a defensive end I'm cheering on versus even in the Eagles and my beloved kicker. I can't get there. Good for you, Justin Tucker. You're the GOAT, but I also don't care for fantasy.
I will say with Scott Fishbowl scoring, I think this is the same kicking scoring as last year.
Yep.
If you're able to stack your quarterback and kicker, you do get some bonus points there because if your kicker or your quarterback gets a touchdown, you get 6 points. You get 3.3 on top of that from the kicker for the extra point.
Yep.
So that does help kind of pad your stats a little bit if you're trying to come up with a kicker.
What's weird, Zach, is we've had these kicker rules for 3 years now. Obviously, the last 2 years the same, a little less the year before, and I don't think I've heard anybody talk about that. And it's an incredible point that a kicker quarterback stack is essentially a 9.3 point 9.3 points right there.
Yeah, I did it last year with the Eagles with Hurts and Elliott, and then I also had Devontae Smith, and that definitely helped me win some weeks when Smith went off. Now, I'm not saying it's going to work with every kicker and every quarterback, but if you find a team that's scoring a lot of touchdowns, normally we try to avoid those kickers. But if you stack them with the quarterback, I mean, it's a free 3.3 points every time they score a touchdown.
Scrolling to see which kickers are left.
As an alternate scoring idea, one of my my local community, like local dads leagues that I joined a couple years ago, buddy of in there who's from the UK, joined a kicker friendly league in the sense of it's, I want to say, a 50-yard field goal gets you around 30 points, and a missed field goal of any range is like minus 70. So it's the wildest league to possibly watch. It got a write-up, I want to say, on Yahoo Sports last year. It's just a crazy league to watch go by on a minute-by-minute basis. I'm sure it induces all sorts of heart palpitations that are not helpful. He's also a Minnesota fan. So
nice.
He was big into the Minnesota kicking circuit.
Nice. Well, Minnesota kicking circuit. That's I feel bad for that guy, man. We are cursed up here with kickers. But I mean, mostly the kicker thing came about as a few years ago with more of an MFL thing where you didn't have to start one, but you could flex one, and that's still what it is on MFL for SFB. In that, I wanted the kicker lovers to have their thing and the kicker haters to not have to. But as we have more and more sleeper leagues, like we have to require it because their settings are so limited, and sleeper's not going to upgrade anything anymore going forward. It just is what it is. But yeah, it's I get it. I agree with you. I got kickers out of almost all my leagues, just added flexes over the years. My home league doesn't have kickers anymore. They haven't for many years. It's just extra flexes. That was the point of it, was to be 0 kickers, but you can flex them if you want to. I'd love to do what Jorge has recommended, 0 IDP, but you can flex them if you want to. But, MFL seems to be the only host that's able to do that kind of thing. So in order to make it as fair as possible, I have to make, certain accommodations.
No, sure. So let me ask you a question, Scott. When you first started the thought process of like, I want to create a fantasy football tournament, right? You obviously had been playing in your home leagues for years and, picking up whatever random leagues, industry leagues you had been participating in. What was your thought process? Was it like, I want to create a tournament that is similar to the type of style that I'm used to playing, or I want to go completely off the wall and do something that nobody has ever seen before?
The early years were not crazy. I mean, we had Superflex back when Superflex was not even remotely popular. But outside of that, we were fairly normal. I think our full intent was not to be off the wall. It was more to just have our readers and listeners of my site be able to play with industry analysts from other sites, people they read and respected and listened to and whatnot. It was more about that in the early years. Absolutely. It wasn't about being crazy. I think the changing scoring every year, a lot of the things I do is more strategic than people think. The deep rosters, so analysts and everyone really doesn't have to worry about waivers so much in season, and it's an easy lead to add. The drafting in July when it's a super dead period and there's nothing else going on, it can dominate the social media sphere, and analysts are busy in August, so they're all fine with playing in July, and the scoring changing every year so that it's something for people to dig into and talk about, and that they can't just go on autopilot and be like, oh, it's just another draft. Like, a lot of that is more strategic than people probably think. But early on, no, it wasn't about being crazy. It was more about just getting my readers and listeners to be able to play with some of the people that they respected in the industry.
There you go, Scott. Debunking the myth that your scoring changes are just a cat walking across a keyboard.
Got a question here from Ken for you. Did MFL get bought recently?
It did, and here's the interesting thing about this, and I've had a few conversations behind the scenes about this, is that now that sleepers kind of moved on to their DFS and their pick'ems, and they're not improving their platform, they're not doing things with their platform. MFL just got bought by a guy, Ted Kasten, who he's had a few exits in the industry. His last work, in fact, was Draft Hero AI. He works in AI. He's very progressive. He's already started improving things on MFL. I had a conversation with someone the other day. I'm like, I wouldn't be shocked if in 2 years MFL has a super sleek app, like a super progressive AI, a super sleek app that rivals Sleeper, but they have all the customization that nobody else has. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch over the next couple of years, where MFL goes now that Ted bought them. I've met Ted a couple times in person. Good guy. I know he doesn't want to rock the boat too much, but we'll see where those improvements go.
Nice. As a person who, like Jorge, loves IDP leagues, and I have zero influence in the industry here, but MFL, hear my cries. Just make it so that my IDP ADP in every league I'm in is not just super flex by default. And just I mean, look, I can work around it, but we have some home leagues and somebody goes on auto draft and it just it's a free square for the rest of the league.
I'm not gonna lie. I run a commissioner service that has a lot of leagues on MFL. It has a lot. I run about 1,200 leagues. MFL's ADP and fantasy ranking, even from the Fantasy Sharks thing and whatnot, like they have certain algorithms that push what is picked in at that auto selection, and it's just terrible. It's so terrible, and I think that's what you're getting at, Jeremy. And that's one thing I would just want to talk to them about, because I'm like, is it Superflex? Okay, this ADP. If it's not Superflex, it's this ADP. If it's IDP, it's like you should only have 3 or 4 filters. Otherwise, like they're trying to key in on so many settings, it makes it really rough. I totally agree.
And sleeper too. They're like, oh, IDP, here's a bunch of garbage ADP that is not going to help.
No, it's like, well, we're just going to make it Superflex ADP because that's exactly the same thing. It's like, no, it's not.
No.
Although we do know for a fact that it changes, because one league Jorge and I were in, one of our commissioners had accidentally hiked up the points scored for, what was it, tackles, Jorge? Or it was DSTs. It was inadvertently giving a point for every tackle by a DST. So all of a sudden you showed up in round 8 and it was like, why are the New England Patriots on the ADP so high? And it'd be like, oh, well, they scored 85 points this week.
Yeah, to be honest with you,
it was kind of fun.
I would scoff. It was, and I wish they would have kept the scoring settings like that, because it introduced a whole new dynamic of like where you place value on your roster. And so when the Dallas Cowboys put up 91 points in week 1 for me, I'm like, I kind of like this. This is
Jorge literally screenshotted this to me. And he's like, I don't know if you're watching our league, but look at this. And I let out some yelp, and my wife turns to me and goes, what could possibly be happening?
It was. I gotta be honest with you. I like these outside the box thinking formats here, and so when I saw it, I'm like, you know what? One day, maybe one day.
Well, I'll try to get you an invite to the Nightmare Kicker League then, Jorge.
Thank you. That has all the infamous Minnesota Viking kickers and former kickers.
Exactly.
Yes, gotcha.
I'm going to jump off now. My family got home from the soccer game, so it was awesome hanging with you guys tonight. It was I'm glad you gave away an SFB spot. It's very fun always to be able to chat with you, Jorge. But I hope you guys have a good night. Props to the chat. You guys are fun tonight. So hope you have a good rest of your mock draft.
Scott, thank you so much for everything that you do. Appreciate you coming on, and we'll hope to see you soon. Man, this has been an intense mock draft. If you're considering, talked about the draft since round 10. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. Yeah.
I remember when you took Daniel Jones.
Yeah. And I think I scrolled by like the one comment where I was like, Daniel Jones in the 10th. Yes. And I'm like, I'm going to highlight you and put you on screen. Anybody else who says differently, you don't get that lecture. But we got Jesse here saying, very fun, guys. Thank you. We hope you all have been enjoying the live stream tonight. That's what you're getting with Scott Fishbowl mock draft tank here at Fantasy and Frames. Now, just to give you guys and gals a little insight, we're going to do Scott Fishbowl drafts like crazy between now and the start of the draft season for Scott Fishbowl. But what you can take away from this show is coming on, watching the mock draft, us giving you our takes on the mock draft, and just having conversations, having fun, interacting with you, the fans that are out there, you, the fantasy football fanatics that are out there, and just having a good time. The Fantasy Football Draft Show here at Fantasy and Frames, hosted by Stacey Perez, and has other co-hosts and guests. That's where we're going to get into the nitty-gritty. That's where we're going to get into strategy. We're going to get into theory. We're going to get into how to really attack your mock draft so that when it comes time for your actual draft, you can have some type of idea of like, well, I'm seeing the draft flow in this direction. Let's attack it from this direction and see what happens. So stay tuned for Stacey Perez's specials on the Fantasy and Frames draft show. We should be going through these special mock drafts for Scott Fishbowl 14. And, you know, just like we had Scott Fish join us tonight, don't be surprised if we get a bunch of industry experts joining us for those special shows with Stacey Perez, which you can find every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern, going forward between now and the beginning of Scott Fishbowl draft season. So, yeah, we got different ways for you to enjoy Scott Fishbowl content. Certainly did not expect I gotta be honest with you. Like when Scott Fishbowl messaged me and it was like, we're gonna give away.
You just made his name Scott Fishbowl. You call that?
Did I say that? Did I just do that? Oh, it's like Mike Clay. Yeah,
I'm sure it's like Mike Clay. You're Mike Clay.
You're Scott Fishbowl.
Are you better than me? Well, I don't know you, but yes. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I'm just gonna call him Scott Fishbowl from now on.
Yes,
Andrea, you have a great night as well.
You've got about 5 seconds left on your pick here, Jorge. So I'll let Jorge try and enable Tyler Algier out of there. What I was going to say is, so agreed with Jorge. You know, tune in to the draft podcast to be able to get some more strategy. Stay here for things like commentary from me on great pick at 15-11 of Ty Shenandler Bong or 17-9 of Noah making me fans. I haven't gotten the Tyler Algier pun that yet, but I'll get there.
Ken saying this has been one of the best ones. Actually, thank you very much. We're glad you're enjoying it.
Your check's in the mail. Thanks for the plug.
Exactly. You know, do we do checks anymore in the mail, or is it now Venmo and PayPal? I don't know.
I think it's largely. I don't know. My beach house rental. I'm not fancy. I just have a friend who has a beach house at the Jersey Shore. Don't at me. But like I said, can I just Venmo you? They're like, nah, I really like a check. And I thought I literally have. I guess I have a check around here somewhere. But yeah, it's a thing. I think people pay rent in checks still.
Nice.
Some rent.
Danny D. Lax Ref. I am so sorry for butchering that if I did. First time won't be the last time. Thanks, guys. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Hope you hit that subscribe button on your way out of YouTube when you decide to head on out. But we hope you stick around for the end of the draft. We've still got more puns at least coming your way. I'm taking Tyler Boyd in the 18th round. Again, hoping Will Levis pans out. Hope this works out, because if you do, you have a great slot wide receiver to get those receptions towards. But I digress. So anyhow, going back to Scott Fish, like when he said earlier on before we started the show, like you can give away a spot, like the notion, like maybe, just maybe, he will want to come on the show during, like that entered my mind, but I didn't like give it too much thought because I didn't want to get my hopes up. The person who surprised me tonight is Zach, aka FF Chalupa Batman. That guy, I can never get on screen. I'm like, hey, do you want to join on the pod? No, I can't. I'm like, okay. Can you get on this pod tonight? No, I don't know. I'm like, if for him to actually jump on and be on screen with us, you don't understand. Like that's like royalty coming to your side. No offense, Scott Fish. And it just was super awesome to have him on. So hopefully, Zach, if you're listening and watching, we can have you on more often. Let's see, we got a Dumbly. Let's see here. I think Will Levis will work out. I hope Will Levis will work out. So our powers combined, hopefully that'll be a thing. Let's see here. We got another comment. Who doesn't have checks? Never know when you need some groceries. Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I love Brooklyn. Are you a fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Jeremy, by any chance?
It's one of those shows that is so adjacent to many shows that I love, but I just never click subscribe on it, if you will, to say what, the tweens do these days. And they probably don't say subscribe on a TV show. Anyway, it's late. I wish I had beer. No, I didn't. It's one of the, as I scroll through TikTok, every Brooklyn Nine-Nine clip I come across is fantastic. And I go, I should watch this show. And then I proceed to put back on, I don't know, Parks and Rec. Or The Good Place. Shout out The Good Place. I think greatest television show that's in the past decade. Take that, Game of Thrones. Good Place.
Wow. Okay. So I keep seeing on my IG and TikTok reels things for Suits.
Oh, Suits, man. I was an OG Suits fan.
So
it is the closest thing to describing what I do in real life and being only about 5% accurate.
But it looks like it's hilarious outside of the serious tones.
Incredible acting. Gabriel Macht is the man. It's a great show. It knows what it is. I feel like it's a pretty self-aware dramedy show. Like it is taking itself. It is as dramatic as it wants to be. And I don't think tongue-in-cheek. I think it's genuinely trying to do what it's doing, but it's enjoyable. It's one of those shows that I remember watching live on USA Network back in the day, and probably we watched the first 3 seasons or so, and then just kind of it fell off. And then one day, maybe right before the Suits hype hit again on streaming, I think it was on before it was on Netflix. It was on Amazon Prime, and I went, I haven't seen the show in a while, and I looked it up, and I was like, I'm sorry. This show continued for 8 more seasons. How is that possible? I feel like that's just one of those things that we're from an era where if you were on a network or generally watched cable channel and you had a sitcom that was good enough for a season, you kind of by default got 5 or 6 seasons. Right. Now that's just unheard of.
So for A. Dumbly in the chat, The Acolyte is very good. If you're a Star Wars fan, I am. I loved it. They released the first 2 episodes on Wednesday. After you're done watching this show, and on your way, hit that subscribe button so we can help get us close to 1,000. Thank you for everybody who's been helping us tonight. Go watch The Acolyte if you're a Star Wars fan, because that the first 2 episodes, oh my god, really good. And Jesse's
also, I'll give props for X-Men 97. If you were an X-Men fan back in the day, I'm a crier. For any other criers out there in the chat, you can get me with pretty much any show. There is a moment in X-Men 97, I never would have thought about it, that I am glad I was sitting and watching by myself, and my wife Carrie was not next to me, probably not watching, but just on her phone, and would have looked over and said, I'm sorry, what are you crying about right now? What are you watching? But it got me. It got me in the feels.
What's up, Mr. Scampers? Better late than never, and trust me, we'll have plenty of these shows, Jeremy and I, going forward. So don't you fret, my friend. No, here's the thing about X-Men 97, which damn it, you took Michael Badgley. God damn you, bro, Cal. That's the one kicker I actually paid attention to. I'm like, I want to get Michael Badgley. I have a good feeling about Michael Badgley. Anyhow, you know what? I'm going to take this one.
You should take Zach's approach and look for your quarterback kicker.
I did. It's not there. It's not there. I was looking for hold on.
Oh, there's that. Yeah, he won at 17-7.
Yeah, damn it. No, but going back to X-Men 97, I'm glad that those episodes did not come out when I was a kid, though, because the scene that you're probably talking about is the same one that I'm talking about. And when that happened on screen, I'm like, oh my God. Oh, did he just, oh my God. I would have been traumatized. So I'm glad that it came out when it did. Sorry for the youngsters who had to go through some trauma just now watching X-Men 97, but that's what therapy's for. It's fine.
Proponents of Disney streaming service exclusives and talk therapy here at Fantasy and Frames.
Well, so I'm trying to find a serious
I
way
say
to
it jokingly, but yeah, we genuinely support those things.
No, it's I was exactly because if you go to our YouTube channel, which I hope you all are going there and subscribing and liking and hitting that notification bell whenever we put out Fantasy Frames content, one of the first things you see when you get to our homepage is our mental health awareness series, where we had like I think 13 videos that Zach, who was just on the stream earlier, and his wife did last year in tandem, where they were covering different aspects of mental health, whether it's imposter syndrome or getting help in terms of therapy, like so many different avenues when it comes to mental health. And that is something we take very seriously here at Fantasy and Frames. When you're a Fantasy and Frames content creator and you join Fantasy and Frames and you meet with me and we have a discussion as far as like, what do you like? What do you want to do? Okay, let's do this. The number one thing I tell everybody is my order priority is health, mental health, family, then fantasy football. We can deal with that later. And so that's just how we approach it here at Fantasy and Frames. And that's how we want to produce our content and be as individuals in and outside of the world of fantasy football. Cameron, the kicker, I'm taking you next. I don't even know how I segued all those three things together at once, but hey, good for me.
Bravo. It's like this isn't your first show.
I went from talking about X-Men to mental health to kicker, the kicker, all in the span of 2 minutes. Good, go Jorge.
Flowers for you as well, Jorge.
Thank you.
Well, I hope we got some people still active in the chat. Feel free to drop anything in there you want to talk about, whether it is, or hear us talk about, I guess is more accurate. Whether you want to hear about Cameron Dicker, the kicker, my true love at the running back position, Kenneth Gainwell, and I just one day hope he will turn into what Darren Sproles was for the Eagles. I still think it's there. Truthfully, I really think he is a running back with talent. And there's a reason he's still there when they've just had a rogues gallery of people. But I can lapse rhapsodic more about Kenny Gainwell, or if there's another streaming service that you love or hate, feel free to drop it in. We're happy to chat about it.
That's right. So I'm barring the Hoff. I don't know what his full name is. You don't see it. Taking the guy I want. I'm going to go full Eagles tight ends here because yeah, I know whether past or present, and if he snipes me, it's okay. I have a backup plan, so it doesn't really matter. But
you meant Zach Ertz. Take Zach Ertz. That's who he's talking about.
That is who I'm talking about. Take Zach Ertz. I dare you. Good. Take the guy that's retiring next week. Good job. Awesome. Just sorry about that. I will take Zach Ertz.
It's a long season, Jorge. You never know. Could come out of retirement. Still in football shape.
He can make another music video and then come out of retirement.
Oh, you were joking. You really were taking Zach Ertz.
I really was going to take Zach Ertz.
Geez. Oh.
I was like, damn, Jeremy just put it out there. Here we go.
You had me sit here Googling. I'm like, who is the backup tight end for the Eagles?
Well, he was a former Eagle tight end. I mean, yeah.
Infamously. Yeah, for sure.
He won a Super Bowl with the Eagles,
obviously. Yes, he was still on. He was on the Nick Foles team. I believe that's right. Yeah, Goddard was technically the backup. I think that might have been the last year.
I think they had
yeah. Oh, here we go. Trivia question. I'll give you to the end of the round. Can you name me who is the Eagles' backup tight end? You do know who this person is.
Okay. I do know who this person is.
Just take a random guess. I'll give you some clues. Feel free to drop it in the chat, and don't cheat in the chat if you genuinely know this or want to take this chat.
I'm looking at the chat. Okay. Give me one clue.
Formerly of the AFC, and I believe this is his first year with the Eagles.
Formerly of the AFC.
This is his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th season in the NFL. Played 8 seasons with one team. 1, 2, 3, 7 seasons with one team. That is the one you probably know him from, AFC Central or North, followed by a 2-year stint with an AFC East team. He only has 271 career targets.
Is it Kyle Rudolph?
No, I like that guess though. The team he was on last year was the New York Jets, where he saw a grand total.
Uzama.
There you go. Yes, CJ Uzama.
How about that? Fun fact.
Yep.
Fun fact also here. Sorry, it's fun fact here going at the 21.4. Obviously, we're talking bench spots at this point. Daniel Bellinger. Let's not forget, folks, we're a couple years removed from the guy having his eyeball come out of his eye socket, him placing it back into his eye socket, missing a game, and then coming back and playing regular snaps at the tight end position, just for sheer pride of saying, I got some dude who just popped his eyeball back into his eye socket on my roster on a bench spot. I'll be happy.
Hey, also another team where there's a wide they do not have a clearly defined set of roles for their wide receivers. You've lost Saquon. Again, we talked about the correlation between running back catches and tight end catches. You're this late in the draft. It's not a crazy pick.
No, I do like also the Deonta Foreman pick here in Cleveland. Is Nick Chubb going to come back from that gruesome, horrific injury? Is he going to be back to form to start the season? I don't know. There's Jerome Ford there who played very, very well. But Deonta Foreman, he's no slouch either. He's definitely a red zone threat within the 5-yard line and score. So first of all, for those who don't know, a little peek behind the content creation conversation or curtain. When somebody says to you, well, this player, when in scoring position, what does in scoring position mean? So for running backs, it means within 5 yards or fewer of the end zone. So in that situation, Deonta Foreman was actually very efficient last year in terms of getting into the end zone. So then, let me get into this question. Your thoughts on Theo Johnson? So I think the prep work I did, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Canadian, Penn State, uber athletic. Let me tell you, if what's his name is Waller does go down or he retires, you can make the case that they take a shot at Theo Johnson. Midway through the season, if Bellinger doesn't work out, but you cannot ignore his athleticism. He is a very raw prospect, but he is a raw prospect. At the same time, the athleticism is there, and there could be opportunity there. Those are my thoughts on it.
I think that's fair. I've come around as someone who's played fantasy for a long time. The last few years, I think, proved it true of get away from get away from the stigma of a rookie wide receiver. Clearly, the NFL has moved to if you're that talented, you're going to get the ball. Tight end, I still think there's been one exception, and it was last year that you can get a rookie tight end, that level of volume and performance. And we're talking about always on a high octane offense. I'm sorry, New York Giants fans. There is nothing high octane about your offense this year. I like the talent maybe next year, but I don't know if I'd put a flyer on Theo Johnson other than I think you're going to pick him up and he's going to have one blow up game with a couple touchdowns in the middle of the season. And there's going to be a bunch of fab dropped on him or waiver claims. And then he's probably going to burn you for a few more weeks and see very limited targets. But that's just my prediction.
So even though I timed out, the player that I wanted actually got drafted by me, the running back. What is he from New Hampshire? Dylan Lob. Definitely good pass catching option there in Vegas. Who am I taking with my last pick? Man, such a tough decision. I'm going to go DeMarcus Robinson. The fact that he's still there, wide receiver 3 for the Rams, had definitely a explosive performance down the stretch last year for the Rams that they didn't really add. I don't believe another third wide receiver. Could be completely wrong, but I think they still have him as their number 3. So, yeah.
That's right. And Van Jefferson's gone, right? That was this offseason, correct?
What's up now?
1 year late. I'm saying the wide receiver room.
Yeah. So Van Jefferson, I believe, is an Atlanta Falcon now.
That sounds right.
Let's see
just
here.
Giving you a bit more, that gives DeMarcus Robinson a bit more potential play time.
Mr. Scampers. in scoring position isn't a pure football metric in closed circles. I don't know whether you're joking about it being a metric in other circles that are more hilarious, or you actually are being very
He's talking
serious.
about curling, Jorge. Curling.
I love it. Oh my god!
Family-friendly show here. Other than Jorge's one drop that we'll bleep out on the non-live version of this, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, wink, wink. We are 3 picks away from wrapping this.
How the mighty have fallen. Round 22 of the Scott Fishbowl draft. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Man,
wow, that is something.
2 years. Just think, 2 years ago, you would say, "Hey, he might get drafted in a 22 round, 6 flex position deep bench." It's wild.
Bob Harris to the rescue. Van Jefferson.
Thank you, Bob.
Steeler.
I couldn't remember where he would be an inconsequential wide receiver, and now I remember. Thank you,
Bob. Exactly. That's awesome.
Prove me wrong, Van. Prove me wrong.
Bob Harris, thank you very much for joining us in here. The legend, the icon, one of the best in the fantasy football space. Bob Harris, ladies and gentlemen. And ladies and gentlemen, with that wraps up the very first mock draft for Scott Fishbowl here at Fantasy and Frames on the Scott Fishbowl Draft Tank Show. I want to thank everybody who joined us tonight. I want to thank Scott Fish, first of all, for before the show offering a Scott Fishbowl spot for us to give away on air. I want to thank Scott Fish for coming on air and joining us for some time talking about the draft as well as other things. FF Chalupa Batman, thank you for coming on, Zach. Jeremy, man, it's been forever since we've had you here on programming. I think we got to make this a regular thing now. I think I'm going to have to bug you every week and be like, Jeremy, it's that time.
Hey, you know what? You said it'd be 30 minutes. You're a dirty liar, but I enjoyed every minute of it.
Everybody, thank you very much for tuning in. As you're heading on out there, make sure you like and subscribe wherever you're listening and watching Fantasy and Frames content. Hit the notification bells. That way you're notified when we put out great content. Thank you all very much for staying up late for us for everything. Thank you for the chat, for being as active as it has been all night long. You all have a great rest of your weekend. Jeremy, again, thank you so much. And we'll see you all next time.